afternoon, kindergartners. Today I'm going to read you a story called Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett. I'm not reading outside today because it's kind of chilly out, although it was really nice the other day. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from the chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater, and when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too, but there was still extra yarn. Mars must be her dog. Oh my gosh, look at that little sweater on the dog. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. Look at Annabelle's dressed in lots of colors, and look at Nate over here. Kind of a dull gray kind of color. Ooh, and his dog doesn't look very happy either. But it turned out he was. And even after she made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, the sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norton. "You can't." I don't know, boys and girls. Do you think she can? I think she can. But it turned out she could, and she did, even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. Look at all those pretty sweaters. Look at Mr. Norton. So she knit one for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. Oh my goodness, kindergartners. Is that a little crazy? Look at him. He's standing in the snow and it's up to his knees. He must be cold. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and other animals too. Soon, people thought Annabelle would run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Let's see what it is first. Okay, so there's the animals. We've got a mouse, a cat, a dog, a bear, a rabbit, and look at these things. She made sweaters for a mailbox and a birdhouse and a house. Oh my gosh, she must have lots of extra yarn. Things began to change in that little town. Boys and girls, do you remember how this town looked super dark and gray and dreary? Look at it now. Does it look dreary now? Kind of has lots of color, doesn't it? News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1,000,000. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. For a pickup truck? My goodness. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2,000,000, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10,000,000, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So, that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Well, that sure wasn't nice. Annabelle's going to be so sad. Back to his castle. The archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box and he lifted its lid and he looked inside. Oh, I don't know, boys and girls. Do you think it's going to be in there? Take a close look. You can see there's those, but let's see. They have knitting needles, but there's no thread. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The archduke hustled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." I don't think he's very happy. But, oh, there it is. There's the box in the water, floating, 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 floating. Oh, and it made itself back to Annabelle. Look at that. It turned out she was. The end. So she officially ran out of yarn. That's probably why the archduke even stole the box to begin with. But it's not very nice to steal things, right? You shouldn't steal things from people, things that you want. We can't always have everything we want. All right, boys and girls, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.